Under the glowing lights of Los Angeles, a young girl named Isabella Cruz from Manila, Philippines, stood trembling on the massive stage of America's Got Talent 2025. Her clothes were simple, her shoes a little worn, and her hands shook as she gripped the microphone. The crowd's whispers filled the air, some doubtful, some pitying. She looked so small beneath those giant spotlights, so out of place among the polished performers. Simon Cowell raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. "Tell us a little about yourself," one judge asked gently. Isabella swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper as she said, "I came from a small place in Manila. My mother is sick, and I just want to make her proud." A murmur rippled through the audience, some skeptical, others moved by her honesty. The music technician misheard her cue, and for a moment, awkward silence filled the stage. Isabella's heart pounded, she could almost hear her mother's voice reminding her to be brave. She closed her eyes, took a shaky breath, and whispered a silent prayer. The judges exchanged uncertain looks, sensing she might break down before even singing. But something in her eyes changed, a quiet fire, a determination born from years of struggle. The lights dimmed slightly, and as the soft piano intro began, Isabella's trembling stopped. She lifted her head, and with one deep breath, prepared to pour her entire soul into the first note that would soon silence every doubt in the room. The first gentle notes of "You Raise Me Up" echoed through the hall, and Isabella's voice emerged, soft at first, trembling like a whisper carried by the wind. But within seconds, that fragile tone transformed into something powerful, pure, and filled with emotion. Every note carried her pain, her dreams, and the weight of every sacrifice her mother had made for her. The crowd, which moments ago doubted her, fell completely silent. You could almost hear hearts breaking as her voice soared higher, stronger, more beautiful with every verse. The camera panned to Simon Cowell, his expression had changed. His skeptical gaze softened, his jaw slightly clenched, as if fighting back emotion. The judges glanced at one another, astonished. Isabella didn't just sing, she told her story through every word. The struggles of growing up in poverty, singing in the streets of Manila to afford medicine for her mother, echoed in her trembling voice. As the music swelled, her passion filled the entire auditorium, and people began to rise to their feet, tears in their eyes. By the time she reached the chorus, the crowd was already cheering, clapping, some even crying. Her voice rose above it all, angelic, unstoppable, unstoppable. And in that moment, everyone in the room realized they weren't just witnessing a performance, they were witnessing a miracle from a girl who refused to give up on her dream. As Isabella reached the song's final bridge, her voice carried a kind of strength that didn't just echo through the theater, it touched every heart listening. The soft piano faded beneath her powerful vocals, and her emotions overflowed like a storm she'd held back for years. The audience, now completely silent again, felt every word, every ounce of her struggle and hope. The camera zoomed in on her face, tears glistened in her eyes, but she didn't falter. Her voice cracked slightly, not from weakness, but from the raw honesty of her pain. When she hit the last soaring note, it felt like time stopped. For a few seconds, no one moved. Then, an explosion of applause erupted through the arena. People stood, clapping, shouting her name. Some were crying openly, their faces filled with awe. Judge Sofia Vergara wiped a tear from her cheek, whispering, "That was angelic." Even Simon Cowell, the man known for his cold criticism, leaned forward, his expression softened in disbelief. Slowly, with a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips, he pressed the golden buzzer. A shower of golden confetti rained down as Isabella dropped to her knees, overwhelmed by emotion. The crowd cheered louder, the judges stood to applaud, and Simon simply said, "That's what this show is about." In that breathtaking moment, the poor girl from Manila had become a global symbol of courage, talent, and the magic of never giving up on your dream. Golden confetti sparkled in the air like a dream coming true before Isabella's teary eyes. She covered her mouth in shock, trembling as the sound of the cheering crowd filled the entire theater. The judges rushed forward to hug her, their words lost under the roar of the applause. Backstage, her mother, weak but smiling on a video call, watched through tears from their small home in Manila. "You did it, Anak," she whispered, her voice shaking with pride. Isabella could hardly speak, she just clutched her heart, trying to take in the moment. The same girl who once sang barefoot on the crowded streets of Manila was now standing beneath a rain of gold in front of millions. Reporters and cameramen surrounded her, capturing every tear, every smile. Simon Cowell leaned toward her and said softly, "You didn't just sing, you told the world your story." His words broke her composure, and she wept openly, overwhelmed by gratitude. The audience began chanting her name, Isabella. Isabella. Their voices echoing like thunder. It was more than a victory, it was proof that faith, hard work, and heart could turn even the smallest voice into something extraordinary. In that moment, the girl who almost got rejected became a star, not because of perfection, but because of the purity of her soul and the courage to keep singing when the world doubted her. As the golden confetti settled, the screen behind Isabella began to play a short video of her life back in Manila. The audience fell silent again, watching the story that had shaped the young girl who had just stunned the world. The video showed narrow streets crowded with vendors, children playing barefoot, and Isabella singing in small cafes and street corners for spare coins. Her voice, even in those moments, carried the same warmth it did on stage. Viewers saw her walking home at sunset, carrying food for her sick mother, her smile soft but full of strength. Every night, she narrated in the video, "I sang to help my mama buy her medicine. Some nights, people ignored me, but I never stopped singing." A hush spread through the theater, even the toughest hearts felt it. The final clip showed her sitting beside her mother, holding her hand and whispering, "One day, I'll sing on that big stage in America, Mama. I promise." The crowd gasped softly, realizing this was not just a dream fulfilled, it was a promise kept. Isabella stood watching her own story on the giant screen, tears streaming down her face, as the audience erupted again in applause. She had not only sung for her mother that night but for every dreamer who had ever been told they weren't enough. Her journey from the streets of Manila to the AGT stage had become a beacon of hope for millions. Backstage, Isabella sat quietly, still holding the golden confetti in her hands as if afraid it might all disappear. The noise from the cheering audience echoed faintly behind her, but her heart was calm, full. Simon Cowell approached her, his usual sharp expression replaced by genuine warmth. "You reminded us what true talent means," he said softly. "It's not about fame or money, it's about heart. And yours filled this entire room tonight." Isabella smiled through her tears, nodding humbly. A producer handed her a phone, and on the screen was her mother, crying with joy. "I'm so proud of you, Anak," her mother whispered. "You kept your promise." Isabella pressed the phone to her chest, overwhelmed. Within hours, clips of her performance spread across the internet, touching millions around the world. People from the USA to the Philippines shared her story, calling her the girl who sang her way into our hearts. Donations poured in to help her mother's medical treatment, and news outlets everywhere celebrated her courage. Standing outside the stage door, looking up at the Los Angeles night sky, Isabella whispered, "Dreams don't belong to the rich, they belong to the brave." The camera zoomed out slowly, showing her silhouette under the streetlights as her song played softly in the background. Her journey had begun in poverty, but her voice had carried her to the world, and left behind a message that would never fade: no dream is too far when your heart dares to believe.